Next on stage is Geert Verstraeten from Python Predictions. He's the founder of this analytical company, and they are celebrating their 10th birthday next month, so congratulations. Next to delivering great projects at their customers, they're also one of the preferred training partners of the DI Academy. And together with Vincent van Look from SD Works, Geert is going to present a model they created to predict absenteeism.
All right, I'm Vincent, and next to me is Geert, to be sure. Predicting absenteeism. Let's start with the big buzzword, burnout. Why burnout? Burnout. 2 in 3 experience stress at work at some time in their career, and it's a big stress moment I'm talking about. But currently, 8.5% of the Belgian work population is at risk for burnout, and 3% of the Belgian work population is actually in burnout, and burnout costs a lot of money. If this room would be one company, it would cost, on average, $500,000 a year. So, we started to predict burnout. Burnout is very hard measurable. So that's why we switched to absenteeism. Absenteeism is still a good impression of burnout. Long-term absenteeism is surpassing burnout, and the project we had was actually a success together with Python Predictions. How did we do it? Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. We have 4 key success factors to that project. First and for all, this might be a bit a cheesy slide, but we're a team, a big team, and the team was really important in the project. We were a team of a lot of people from SD Works, from the sponsor, which was Frederick, and our HR director, together with some really HR analytics persons, together with a lot of people who only know things about HR and not a lot of data, and with Python Predictions. And it was very, very important to have good sessions with them to understand what analytics is, to understand what data is. It's not that easy in an HR environment. The second thing was to define the project. I already said it's hard to measure burnout. But it's that's why we switched to absenteeism. That's data we have in our payroll environment at SD Works. And we also started with SD Works on our own data. We have more data on our own than we have from our clients at SD Works. And I think Geert is going to tell more about what happened next.
Thanks, Vincent. Yes, so indeed, the target was absenteeism, obviously for privacy reasons and for reasons of not having the data. What was the reason of the absenteeism? We had to use that. And we linked that to a number of predictors, and they really came from the different players in the team. And so we had people on the business side offering ideas, and we had also Antwerp Management School offering ideas from scientific research, and we had our data scientists making creative combinations of those. And so basically, this helped us in defining the project and having a lot of ideas about tackling this problem. Now, the project definition as such is larger than that and is a more complex topic. To those interested in managing projects, we'll tell more with the sponsor of this project, Frederik Somers, in the workshop at 10:45, where we'll show how to define projects. But let's leave it here for the 12-minute talk. These first 2 points refer very well to what Richie said at DataKind. So it's really not about being there as an external partner and telling the company how to do it. It's really about being a team and a partner. And this one is really about making sure that you're solving the right problem, or at least a problem you can work with, and a problem where you see solutions and a business case. Okay. The third one, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the case. What we had was 6,500 observations, and from all the ideas that we had, We had about 54 topics that we detected that we wanted to cover. 85% of those were actually able to be translated to data that SD-Works had about their employees, which meant that we created a base table of 980 variables, which were potential predictors. We had an interesting technical problem due to the fact that it was a very funny target distribution with a zero inflated target with a big bump on the end of people with long-term absence. So we used some cool techniques, zero Poisson inflated models and random forests and support vector machines and whatnot. But our goal was not to decide to overwhelm the business. Our goal was to create a connection between what we were doing and the business. And something that was really crucial in creating that connection was explaining what predictors really meant. And what we use for that is what we call our predictor insights graphs, that some people in the room know very well. I'll talk you through them. So what we have on these graphs, because there's a lot of things about don't use two dimensions or two axes in a graph. We'll do it for this one. What we have in this graph is past absenteeism, which was measured in 12 months' time. So you see that 70% of the employees had only 0 to 4 days of past absenteeism in the last year. Okay. Obviously, what we want to do in this graph is related to future absenteeism, and the relationship goes as you would expect. People with low past absenteeism will have a lower probability of future absenteeism. What you see in the red dots were the number of days absent on average for the specific group within the next quarter. So we used last year's data to predict, but we predicted next quarter. Okay. What we also had on the graph was an average, the total average. And so you immediately see that the group of 10% of people who were absent for more than 15 days last year clearly differ from the average, and so have a higher probability of being long-term absent. Okay. Another graph I wanted to share with you is the last evaluation score. Also here you see there's a limited number of people with a low evaluation score, but it is related to higher absenteeism. So be careful when you give your low evaluation scores next time to your colleagues. And another one we really thought was very interesting was, do you agree that you have a backup in your organization for your role? And what we see is that organizations where people, or people in the organization that have the feeling that there is a backup for what they are doing have lower absenteeism than on average, which is something we see reflected in new work organizations where people have roles and backup of these roles, which makes sense in our story as well. Okay. So basically what we covered here was really creating that connection and moving together with the business to understand what we were doing. And we finally ended up with a model of 8 variables, but obviously I'm not allowed to share the formula of the Coca-Cola today. The final point of our 4 key success points was the full handover. So what we did in the beginning was a management workshop to make sure that everybody was on track. But what we did in the end was a technical training for the analysts at SD-Works to make sure that they could continue without us. So we have left the building. SD-Works is still monitoring what we have done. And obviously we were very fortunate that Vincent joined SD-Works as a clever data scientist at that period. And I think we put in the spark and the match, and the fire is still ongoing, and I'll go back to Vincent for that.
All right, to conclude, we have a model in place now that can predict absenteeism. We can do it at the team level, not at an individual level. Of course, it would be a bit privacy intrusive, but we can do it at a team level, and we can do it quite well. And the nice thing is that we can do it on payroll data we have available of a lot of our clients, and we can roll that out quite easily at other companies. Of course, it's more interesting to have that extra data from other HR systems, but the message here is we can predict absenteeism, and we have a better insight in what drives absenteeism, so HR can make better policy to reduce that absenteeism on a long-term basis. And that was it.